Good morning, everyone, and thank you for joining us today. My name is Stacy Adams. I'm a lead project manager at the with the Water Supply Bureau, and I am the Cooperative Funding Program Manager. I'm going to be your moderator and host for today's webinar. This is the second of our two informational webinars we're hosting for the FY24 DEP Alternative Water Supply Funding Program opportunity. So the video webinar is being recorded. It's going to be available on our YouTube channel, as well as a link will be posted on our CFP website. If you want, you can visit at SFWMD TV on YouTube to also find the webinar recording. So let's go ahead and get started. So Governor DeSantis signed an executive order which requested recurring annual funds for alternative water supply development. He recently signed a new executive order to do achieving more for Florida earlier this month, I believe. The governor and the legislature both recognize the importance of these types of projects and protection of Florida's natural systems and have allocated over $170 million statewide during the past 4 legislative sessions. On our website, you're going to find our guidelines, the application, our program contacts, and example applications. New this year, we have our acknowledgement form. This must be completed and uploaded, signed as on the entity's letterhead. If this is missing, we will be reaching out to you to provide this information. So in anticipation of any AWS funds being allocated to the program, the district released an application on December 1st. As I mentioned earlier, this is the second and last of our informational webinars. Our application will close at exactly 4 p.m. on March 2nd. Please, please, please do not try to upload documents at 3:59. The portal will close at exactly 4 p.m. and will no longer be accessible. During March and April, we have an internal staff review process. And in May, I will be presenting the project list to the governing board for approval. And we will be submitting that to DEP for funding allocations by May 31st. So who can apply? As you can tell from the slide, pretty much anyone. To be eligible, you have to adhere to all of our application instructions, any laws and regulations. If you're a local government, you must have an adopted ordinance that comports with the district's year-round irrigation rule to be eligible. User groups that are not eligible to apply include any individual homeowner or resident that wants to complete a retrofit, or if you are a permittee that is out of compliance with any district or DEP issued permit. This is a reimbursement program. No one is guaranteed up to the full 50% funding. Applicants are responsible to move forward with the project with or without district or state funding. Anticipated dates are the district's fiscal year, starting October 1st, 2023 through September 30th, 2024. The dates are subject to change based on legislative appropriations and agreements between DEP and the district. We have provided a start date to assist applicants to determine if a project application should be submitted. Most of our contracts range anywhere from 12 to 20 months. But we try and give you a starting point for if you are ready to apply for our project. Allowable costs are towards the project identified in the application and construction or implementation costs within the funding period. Some of our non-allowable costs include any expenses incurred before or after the funding period, regular O&M, any permitting, design, engineering, lobbying, in-kind services. For a full list, please refer to the guidelines document. We do have 2 different project types. The first is alternative water supply, and where we increase water supplies through development of non-traditional water sources and or storage to meet existing and future needs. Robert is going to review these items in more specifics in a few slides. And water conservation is any project that uses hardware or technology to increase water use efficiency. And Rosenis will be discussing those items later in the presentation. As part of the DEP AWS guidance document, they request that the districts provide a prioritized list of projects based on some of the following considerations. Does it provide regional benefits? Does it support an MFL water body? Additional benefits such as water quality, flood control, et cetera. Projects need to be shovel ready and have undergone a cost benefit analysis. Historically, our program governing board priorities have considered applicants must be within our district boundaries or that the project provides benefits to our district. It has to be AWS or conservation. It must be construction or implementation. Again, no O&M, design, engineering, permitting, or pilot projects. Projects should support the district's mission and an or approved regional water supply plan. Prioritize projects based on a regional or resource consideration, such as a restricted allocation area. To be more selective about entities who receive grant funding, the governing board approved an eligibility requirement that local governments must have enacted a local water conservation ordinance that restricts the times and dates irrigation is allowed. So in a similar manner, this year, the governing board believes it's advantageous to consider the status of local government water supply facilities work plans. The district has multiple areas with water resource limitations. The district develops regional water supply plans that identify water source options and strategies to meet the 20-year planning horizon at a regional level. So to integrate water planning at the local level, local governments are required to update their water supply facilities work plans within 18 months of an approved regional water supply plan. By updating their local work plans, they demonstrate how they're planning for and developing projects to meet their future water needs. Updated work plans establish a firm linkage with the district's approved regional water supply plan. For FY24, the current work plan status is a cost share process consideration. However, beginning in fiscal year 25, it will become an eligibility requirement for local government applicants to receive funding. This only applies to local governments and not private entities. At this time, I will turn it over to Robert Wambestrat, who is our reuse coordinator, who's going to focus on alternative water supply.
Thank you, Stacy. My name is Robert Wambestrat, and I'm the AWS reuse coordinator here at the South Florida Water Management District. So AWS projects are those that increase water supply through the development of non-traditional water sources, and those include salt water, brackish water, reclaimed water, excess surface or storm water, and any other source that's designated as a non-traditional source in one of our regional water supply plans. Storage development projects for non-traditional sources are also included as being fundable under this program. However, operations and maintenance projects, even if they are related to the development of a non-traditional source, are not included. It's a big distinction. We go through that almost every year. So the operations and maintenance are not included under this program. So as Stacy discussed earlier, there's some general considerations that FDEP has outlined, but there are a few other considerations under the AWS program, and I'd like to discuss those real quick. Those are dependent on whether the project reduces dependence on traditional sources, whether the project supports the goals and objectives of our regional water supply plans, if the project supports ocean outfall legislation, and if the project's contribution is located in a resource-limited area. As previously stated, the grant program is for construction of AWS projects, but not all costs are eligible. I'm going to review those costs that are, and in the next slide, I will review those that are not. Allowable or eligible costs in the AWS program include those that are for the transmission line for either brackish or saltwater sources, reclaimed water pipelines, pump stations or storage, reverse osmosis trains, and the pumps and equipment associated with those: ASR wells, brackish water or production wells, and concentrate disposal wells. The non-allowable costs include those that don't really directly constitute the hardware, I guess is the best way to describe it, the construction. The things that are not allowable are those related to design, permitting, videos, as-built, and then anything that has to do with finished water projects, such as storage tanks or transmission lines. End user connections and backup generators are also not allowable costs under this program. Now, there's more examples of non-allowable costs that are provided in the guidelines document. And I would encourage you, as Stacy did, to review the guidelines document. In a nutshell, the program is really for those construction projects that increase water supply by developing non-traditional sources of water. If you keep that in mind, you're going to be on the right track for this program. I'm going to turn it over now to Rosina Colon. She's the Water Conservation Analyst here at South Florida Water Management District.
Thank you, Robert. As Stacy mentioned earlier, the water conservation component of the Cooperative funding program seeks to support projects that improve water use efficiency and conservation. These projects can target an individual property, a business, a farm or nursery, or utilities, infrastructures, and operations. Projects that use hardware or technology to increase water use efficiency are eligible for consideration. And these projects can be in the form of a rebate program for residents and businesses managed by a sponsoring entity, such as a utility, a local government agency, or even a non-governmental organization. Some examples of projects that have been funded in the past are high-efficiency indoor fixtures or appliances retrofits, automatic flushing devices, irrigation retrofits or rebates, agricultural or nursery irrigation efficiency improvements, and industrial, commercial, institutional projects such as cooling tower retrofits. Some of the elements that are considered in the review process are the water source being conserved, the quantity of water being saved, quality and detail of project application, and is it a project that has environmental benefits and benefits the community. One heavily considered item is cost effectiveness, which is a measure of how much money is spent to save 1,000 gallons of water. Focusing on this allows the district to stretch its dollars and get the most bang for each buck, while also encouraging applicants to design their projects to be as cost effective and efficient as possible. Conservation projects should have a cost effectiveness equal to or less than $6 per 1,000 gallons to be considered. Now we'll talk about the two biggest categories for water conservation projects, urban and agricultural. The first category, urban conservation projects, can be divided into indoor and outdoor projects and can usually target devices and systems in existing properties like indoor fixtures and water using appliances, cooling towers, HVAC systems, or irrigation controllers, sensors, spray bodies, and system audits. Water conservation projects in new construction can also be considered if the builder is working towards a Florida Water Star certification. You can learn more about Florida Water Star by visiting the website www.floridawaterstar.com. Some examples for urban conservation projects are the installation of submeters, cooling tower water use efficiency upgrades, advanced meter analytics software, online customer portals directly related to water conservation, among others. Utilities are also encouraged to consider projects that will improve the efficiency of their operations. We are open to consider other types of technology or hardware not listed here that improves water use efficiency. Applicants should be aware that some of projects are not eligible for funding. For example, indoor fixtures for new construction, unless part of a Florida Water Star certification program, automatic meter reading infrastructure or hardware like antennas, relays, meters, or decoders, wireless urinals, projects that target practices consider operations and maintenance, installation of new irrigation systems or extensions to existing irrigation systems, and replacement of landscaping. In the second category, we'll discuss agricultural and nursery operations. This can also be divided into two groups. The first one includes projects that convert irrigation systems into more efficient ones, like taking a flood irrigation system and converting it to an overhead irrigation system. The other group includes projects that help improve irrigation management equipment, like installing weather stations, wireless telemetry, or soil moisture probes. Some other examples of agricultural projects are replacing sprinkler heads with more efficient ones, pump system automation, and variable frequency drive retrofits on existing pumps or wells. Other technology or hardware not listed here could also be considered if it improves water use efficiency. Finally, here we can see some examples for agricultural projects that would not be eligible for funding. In general, projects that seek to install new irrigation systems or extend existing systems are not eligible. Neither are culverts or water control structures, replacing old emitters with new ones of the same efficiency or flow rating, new pumps, new filters, fertilization or disinfection hardware or materials, freeze protection materials, construction of tailwater ponds or reservoirs, or the installation of mainline pipes for surface water delivery. Essentially, this covers the basics of the water conservation component for this cooperative funding program, but potential applicants are strongly encouraged to review the program guidelines to be sure their projects meet all applicable standards and requirements. With that, I'm going to turn the presentation back to Stacy so she can review the program's website.
Thank you both. So if you go to our website, you're going to reach the main landing page for grants and funding opportunities that gives you the background information. And as you scroll down the website, you're going to find a couple different options. If you have not already subscribed to our email notification list, I highly recommend that you go to the paragraph right below the example applications, and there's a little button that says, please click here to subscribe. Click there and register your email. I believe if you choose water supply planning and cooperative or regional opportunities, both of those would get you the email notification list that we send out regarding the applications, when it's going to close, and when projects are selected. The program contacts are right below there. So you can contact Jim Harmon, Robert, or Rosenis, and we will be happy to answer any questions you may have. I do want to go ahead and let you know, we have been asked if we can review your application prior to submitting it through the portal, and we are unable to do so. But if you have questions regarding how you're filling out the application, or if you're not sure about something, please reach out to us and we will be happy to see how we can help you with those questions. When you are ready, when you've downloaded your application, you've downloaded the guidelines, and you've reviewed the example applications, and you're ready to submit your application, you're going to go to the paragraph that says download and complete the application and complete the online submission form. And when you click that hyperlink, it's going to open a new tab. And on this form, all the fields are required, including the latitude and longitude. If you don't know that information, you can go to the click here to enter your address, and it will populate your lat long in decimal degrees. When you're filling this out, if you're not filling it out for yourself, you're filling it out for somebody else in your organization, or it's a contractor filling it out on behalf of an organization, I would like to request that you put a contact information of a real person that I can contact if there are questions regarding your application. If it's a generic email address such as info@Joe Schmo, I can't get the answers to the questions I need. Or if you give me a customer service phone number and it just puts me in a loop where I can't get to a real person, this will delay the review of your application. So this last item I want to cover relates to AWS applications. So if you're concerned about water conservation, you can just hold tight for a minute. So in the AWS application, we wanted to provide some tips for you. We have a couple tables for information for deliverable schedules. This is an example of a generic deliverable schedule that doesn't really help us in the review process. So some suggestions we have is to take what we have as a generic and make it into a more detailed summary for the review of these projects, so we understand exactly what an entity is going to be doing. So for example, task 4 just is a generic production well and raw water mains, but down below, it's been separated into 2 production wells and approximately 4,500 linear feet of raw water main. Task 5 has been broken up from facility construction into the site work, the RO skids, the degasifier, and the electrical systems. If you want to detail out your contract development, your NTPs, your mobilization, or your completion information, you can actually put that in the text field for the scope of work. That section has up to 6 paragraphs. So they don't need to be in the deliverables breakdown schedule. So we've reached the end of our presentation. So at this time, few instructions. If you would like to ask questions, if you're participating via Zoom, if you will raise your hand, use the raise hand feature. And if you're on the phone, if you can raise your hand by using *9, and *6 will mute or unmute your line. When I do call on you, I would ask that you state your full name and affiliation prior to asking your questions or providing comments. So at that time, I'd like to call on our first participant. And I apologize in advance if I mess up anybody's names. Looks like Andrew Woodcock, you're free to speak.
Hi, can you hear me okay?
Yes, sir.
Thank you. Andrew Woodcock with Tetra Tech. I have a question on the alternative water supply requirement about finished water storage. If there's a project that is an alternative water supply treatment facility that includes storage, what would be the best way in the application to represent the construction costs for the project? Should the storage cost be netted out?
Yes. Anything that is finished water has to be removed from the cost because finished water is not eligible for consideration. You could include it as far as by saying, you have this, but for what you're going to put in table 1 and table 2 for the cost breakdown for the fiscal years and your deliverables, you would not include anything related to finished water.
Okay, thank you. And I have a second question if I may be able to ask it, use my time.
Absolutely.
This is very specific on table 1 of the AWS application. At the far end, there's a column that says project total. For a multi-phase project that has already received some cooperative funding through this program, should that project total number include the historical awards?
So in the application, if I'm recalling correctly, we have a place where you can put if you've received funding already and how much funding that was. If it is a district contract, you would include that contract number as part of your application. And if it is a project that we have already funded, I would suggest if you're applying for AWS that you use the same project title for your new application and just add a phase to it, or make sure that that is explained in your introduction background section.
Okay, so I guess for specifically table 1, then we wouldn't need to include any prior awards in that project total?
No, that's just from what's fiscal year 24 forward, what those costs are going to be, and you can break them out by the construction cost. And then we have a section for the engineering design if you have those costs for those fiscal years as well.
Okay, great. Thank you very much. I appreciate it.
You're welcome. The second caller we have is Kristen Echo.
Yes, that's right. Can you hear me?
Yes, ma'am.
Hi, good morning. I'm with HCE Consulting out of Jupiter. We had a question about the size of projects and if the committee had any preference. I don't know if they considered cost benefit to just be proportional to the size of the project, or if they prefer to fund larger, like more visible projects, or if smaller ones would also be considered.
Can you give me a little more information?
Well, I don't know that I have too much specifics. We're working with some local governments, and they're considering what projects that they would like to ask for funding. And they are concerned that if it's too small of an improvement, it's not really visible enough to get the committee's support.
Okay, so let me answer this as best as I can. We don't consider really any project too small. However, in the guidelines document, if you are a local, if you're applying on behalf of a local government, or a local government is applying, there is a minimum amount of money that the project has to be. That does not apply to any private entities. So we have projects that range from, obviously our conservation projects are usually $100,000 or less for most of those projects that are submitted. And we've had AWS projects that have been anywhere from $500,000 to $75 million, depending on the given year. Obviously, in the past, the state only has so much money to allocate statewide. So we don't know how much we're going to get. But we want you to apply in your application what you can actually get done or get started in fiscal year 24, and what you could finish in a probably 12 to 18, 24 month time frame. So it's not necessarily the size of the project when we're doing our internal review process. It's the merits of the project, where the project is located, your project readiness. If it's conservation, obviously there's a bigger cost effectiveness calculator that we use. AWS is slightly different. We look at those costs differently. If you would like to discuss a particular project offline, you are more than welcome to give me a call.
Okay, that'd be great. Thank you so much.
You're welcome. All right, next up is Courtney Harris.
Good morning. Can you hear me okay?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. Good morning. My name is Courtney. I represent the city of Fort Lauderdale. We are looking into funding for a water treatment plant. And my specific question around that is regarding the cost benefit. Is there a particular way that we need to display, be it Microsoft Excel or another program that shows calculations? Is there a specific way for us to show that it is cost effective, i.e. less than $6 per 1,000 gallons?
So if you're applying for a water treatment plant, you are not going to be using the water conservation application, which includes a cost effectiveness calculator. You're going to be downloading the AWS Word version application for alternative water supply. That's the other thing. I highly encourage you, if you're not sure which application to use, please reach out to us.
Okay.
So in the AWS application, there is a question towards the end. I'm actually trying to find it right now. That says how you can provide your quantity of water supplied and how to provide a calculation. It's kind of generic, but most of the time, We've seen entities do it a variety of different ways. Years ago, we tried to do something similar to what we do for water conservation, but it just did not work very well.
Okay.
This is where I would say if you've got your engineering team, design team who has some of those annualized capital costs, I would probably say you would need to look there and include that as best you can. It's question 2C on page, I think, 3 or 4.
Yes, I have it pulled up here. Yes, that's exactly. Okay, that's exactly what I was looking for. Thank you so much.
You're welcome. I don't see any more raised hands at this time, but I would like to give anybody an opportunity if they have any other questions before we end our webinar for today. All right. Well, I would like to thank everyone for participating in today's call and for our speakers. And I hope everyone